Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to Health Experts 101, a health hub that you can trust. Yes, my name is Richmond, and today I'll be guiding you through our next episode on Health 101. Yes, today we have a very, very special topic. Can you guess? I'm sure, yeah, some of you guys probably guess right, but yes, today we'll be talking about the very, very special topic about menopause. Yes, I'm sure that everyone at some point of your life, you heard about menopause. Um, but since, yes, I wanted us to talk about actually menopause, even though it is something that we, hear about. And, it's something that we know that, a lot of our mothers and sisters and right females go through this. But actually, there is a lot of history behind menopause as well. As you can see on the screen, what we thought menopause was and how menopause actually used to be viewed centuries ago is also really, really different. So, as you see, someone who used to struggle with menopause or who had menopause, this is how they were viewed 100 years ago. She described they did not only turn wine sour and seed sterile, but even caused grass and garden plants to wither and fruits to fall from any tree beneath which they sat. In many cultures, there was laws regarding being in contact with them. That is crazy, right? Yeah, it is not something that we would, assume now in the the 21st century that we live in. But this is actually something that existed a long time ago. This is how people used to think about those who were going through menopause. So today I wanted us to dive a little bit into the topic. Then, what exactly is menopause? Actually, the term was first used in a paper in 1821 by a guy known as, yes, Day Gardon. Yes. And what exactly is menopause? Menopause is referring to the cessation. So this is the cessation of the ovary of the woman, typically from the age of 40 to 50. And many of the experts have been trying to do a lot of research on this topic. So today we'll look at the paradigm shift, how it used to be viewed before and how it is viewed now. Are you ready? All right, let's dive in. So it's really, really interesting that even though the term was firstly used in 1821, and a lot of research was conducted in the 1900s about menopause, but we can track it all the way back, even if we are trying to, yes, track it back to the history. We can go all the way back even into the history of the Bible, which was some 2,000 years ago. When you look through even the history of the Bible, it talks about, as we know, based on the definition, right? Pretty much someone who goes through menopause is not supposed to give birth. So there are those accounts even from the Bible. There's a character called Sarah in the Bible who gave birth at the age of, do you know, 90. Now, of course, we cannot just go based off those accounts. And even though she herself wasn't someone who was supposed to give birth at that age, but that was something that was, if we think about it today, is really, really crazy, right? And not only at that time, but also even at the time of Aristotle as well. He also noted how there is this phenomenon about the women around that age of the 40 to 50. So we can track it all the way back. And then there are also a lot of experts who talk about this in the 1800s. One example being Charles Mayth in 1848 in his record called Change of Life. He mentioned about what has she accept the same gray hairs, the wrinkles, the gradual decay of these physical and personal attractions, which here therefore have commanded the image of society. And in 1845, by Colomba de Lazare, he also mentioned, compared to yield to power of time, women now cease to exist for the species and henceforward live only for themselves. So, even though there was no scientific proof or research, but there was all these accounts about how the woman was not the same woman anymore after they go through this menopause period. Now, this is just a brief version, and as I mentioned, we cannot just, of course, go based off the Bible accounts and all of those things because the records are not as accurate. But from the history that we have, in there was the lady. Her name yes, her name is Miss Ruth Alice Kistler. Yes, Miss Ruth Alice Kistler. She actually, in 1956, was the oldest lady to ever give birth, which is crazy, right? When you think about it, and she's the one who holds the Guinness Book of World Records for the oldest lady to give birth at that time. And people actually criticized her because of, not necessarily because of the menopause, but because of all the behind the scenes situations that took place as well. So today, hopefully, we can be able to dive a little deeper into menopause, not based on how people accounted it, but also based on the science proof as well too. But as I mentioned, menopause was actually viewed in a very, very, very negative way. As you saw by the accounts of some of the experts before. And one very part that I wanted to mention here, as you see on the screen, actually, many cultures, right, mention about not getting close to anyone who was experiencing menopause. The reason was because it was connected to the image of blood, right? Blood was related in the primitive mind with wounds, injuries, and death. So menstruation was seen with a level of fear and superstition. It was the topic of strict taboos in many cultures, and there are still sentiments of this today, being viewed by some inherently even as a curse. And that is why, in many of the societies, they would even put the women, they would separate them from society. They would have them go live in special huts. And some people, even when you have the menopause, they will literally tell them, right, when you come, you should announce yourself, calling themselves as unclean, unclean, so that others can notice that this person is experiencing this condition, right? So at a very, very, very negative stereotype. And then in the history, there is a period called the Victorian era when there was the queen who lived at that time, right? The Victorian era, during this time, what actually happened was physicians held the belief that there was a link between the womb and the brain. So we started moving away from just seeing it as just something that, was just bad, a taboo, to them trying to find some sort of scientific connection to this. So they would describe it as a link between the womb and the brain, making all women susceptible to insanity. And the term that they use for this is climacteric insanity, mentioning that whenever there is the change within the woman's body, they are inclined to go through this insane process as well. So what they used to do is literally, when there was someone who was experiencing the menopause, they would literally put them in asylum. They'll put them in prisons. And sometimes they will even go to the point of doing the surgical removal of the ovaries and sometimes even trying to, in a really worse case, trying to remove the clitoris as well. So that is very, very extreme how it was viewed. And a lot of women were viewed as very, very crazy people. Now, a lot has changed, obviously, since then. That is why we're covering this topic. There has been a new paradigm shift, which I wanted to, yes, talk about. So, yes, as early as the 1777, now we're going back a little bit, right? Even though it was not fully proven just yet, but there was a guy known as John Blake, and he attempted to explain the cessation of menstrual blood flow as insufficient pumping force through the blood vessels. Okay. And he also was someone who connected this, not only he tried to do the association between menopause, vaginal atrophy, and also bladder symptoms as well. And following him around the same period, there was a guy called Edward Tilt. And Edward Tilt was also a physician, and he noted that women at the change of life were frequently affected with cancer, gout, and rheumatism. Okay. And all of this was actually, he mentioned it was a well localized nervous affection that happened during this period whenever women were experiencing, right? That change between 40 years to 50 years. He noticed it wasn't just menopause, but within a certain aspect of the human nervous system, all these things were happening: cancer, gout, rheumatism. So those were the early beginning stages of this paradigm. I hope you're still following well. Yes, we still have a little more to go. Then what happened was around 1896, this is when things started to take a turn. Okay. We describe this period as the dawn of hormone replacement therapy. So now we moved all the way from, oh, she's a crazy woman, let's put her away, let's separate her from society, she does not deserve to be here, to people now trying to dive into the research. Now, one very important thing that we need to know is the reason why there wasn't much research in the beginning was because many women at the time didn't even live to see 40, 50, and I'm talking about centuries ago, right? Because of all the wars and all of the lack of, the things we have now. So it wasn't really that big of a matter, right? But now, as the time went by, of course, women started to live longer, and a lot of changes has taken place, and a lot of research has been conducted. So there is this guy known as Newton. Now, this is the aha moment for those who have been following so far. In 1929, there was a guy known as Butenandt. Butenandt was a German researcher, and he won the Nobel Prize for his discovery about estrogen. Yes, so now he was the one who discovered estrogen and its association with the women menstrual cycle. All right. So what did he do exactly is he isolated and obtained the pure crystalline forms of hormone from the urine of pregnant women, which was eventually to be called estrone. So this is the work that he carried out. And through this work, we were able to understand more about the endocrine system of the human and how this affects women, especially when they reach that period of around 40 to 50 years. Okay, so after him, even though he discovered, but there were more research that took place, especially from the 1960s to the 2000s. There was a lot of research about the endocrinology of hormones were being conducted. And through that, they were able to see more scientifically what was going on within the women reproduction system. One of the things that they started to notice is how, as they get older, what happened is that system the hormone starts to get lower and lower, right? And the ovaries of the woman, ultimately, that ovary system comes to an end, right? To close down, that reproduction. And this has also been associated with the what we call the FSH, which is the follicle stimulating hormone, which has a role in maintaining the hormone level of the women. So one thing that was noticed is that as the time goes by, there is the imbalance in this hormone within the woman, and you can see the result of the symptoms, what we call the vasomotor symptoms. So vasomotor symptoms include sleep disturbances, sexual dysfunction, mood disturbances. All of those things are noticed. So what happened was there was the treatment that was suggested, which was the hormone therapy. So there was a hormone therapy that was conducted, and now this is the most effective treatment for these vasomotor symptoms, or anyone who is actually experiencing going through the period of the menopause. And there's the medicine that is being used, which is called amnion. Amnion or amnition is what is being used in even helping with some of these treatments. So now there's a lot of therapy that is being used, and also many hospitals that are dedicated specifically to patients who are experiencing, not hospital, but clinics who are experiencing menopause as well. And then moving forward, there has been the International Menopause Society that was established in 1978. Currently, there are 62 countries that are involved, and they have been conducting all the research to dive deeper into how to fight this battle. And also, the World Health Organization has been helping by conducting all the different research in menopause to also help with coming up with a clear way to solve this problem. So, of course, sorry, it's not a problem, but how to help people to deal with that particular period much better as well. So the goal at the moment is still trying to find ways to deliver the acceptable levels of post-menopausal healthcare to the entire population at risk in all countries of the world. So hopefully, yes, you enjoyed this. And one more thing is, one part that now we're trying to see is because with the hormone therapy, there has been the association with cancer as well in certain cases. So now this is what they are trying to also dive much more deeper in to see how to fix this. So thank you all for listening. This is an example of one of the big paradigm shifts in the health field as well. So I hope that you all enjoy this, and see you in our next episode.